Welcome to a brand new episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Witnish. Today's episode has an exciting and fun twist. We have guests for the fourth time, and in this case, we have two guests, Scott Cliffe and Maddie Davies from Defense Electrical. And there's two parts to this episode. The first one is their inspiring story of building a multi-million-dollar electrical contracting business, having a third business partner embezzle the funds out of the company and send it into administration, and then in the space of 4 years building it back up to a team of 60 and a multi-million-dollar business again. So they're very vulnerable, very humble about sharing what happened. So if you've been through a challenging time in business or life, this will certainly have you on the edge of your seat and also give you hope on the other side. So that's the first part of the episode. And both Scott and Matt have more recently started dipping their toe into putting content out as personal brands on social media. So they're going to share their experience with taking that leap and some of the tools and resources and things that they're talking about. We did have a three-way Zoom, and there is some sound interference throughout and some background noises and a few things popping up and a bit of feedback. But if you can work past that and bear with us, it's a great conversation. So get ready to hear from Matthew and Scott. Maddie and Scotty, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, mate.
Gentlemen, we did an episode recently on storytelling and how that can form a compelling foundation to connecting and building a relationship with the audience. And your story is arguably one of the most exciting, scary, up and down roller coaster adventures, particularly on the business front, that I've ever come across. And I'm really excited and I guess privileged that you're willing to come and share some of that on today's episode. So to kick things off, start with you, Maddie. How did you start out in business? Where did it all begin?
Where it all began is it's actually a larger company, working as a project manager and sort of trying to get an understanding where my path and direction is inside that business. When I was sort of told, like, you can do anything you want to, I sort of thought about it over the next week or two. And when I actually want to understand it all, I want to get involved, get dirty. I want to know what it's like from the ground level to the top level. I wanted to understand the challenges, etc. I'm someone who likes to really enjoy solving puzzles, and I can get bored and stagnant quite easily if I'm on the one puzzle and monotonous sort of position. So I was in a position there where I was making a decision whether I started really investing in keep purchasing up property, or I took the step and had a crack at business and decided to jump out on my own and kicked it off in the back of a garage. Even had a little office sitting there, three car deep garage office, some tools. I think I even had a surfboard in there, so I had quite a bit. And just started running around doing labour, for supply labour, bit of lighting control works. Actually did some work for Scotty at the time when he was working for another company. And then it started to really grow from there and started getting bigger and bigger projects. Scotty and I did TAFE together, so it was always in my head that one day we're going to do something together. After a little bit of pursuing, got him in.
Amazing. And Scotty, on that note, what was that like when you first crossed paths in a business sense? Obviously you went to TAFE with Maddie, but when you got approached, opportunity to go into a partnership, how was that initial experience venturing into that path and doing it with someone else?
Yeah, it was it was exciting for sure. I mean, Maddie and I, we went to TAFE, but we also, at TAFE, we became really good mates. Like, he's always been my best mate for 25 years now, and our paths always kind of intertwined as we went through our careers. We worked at many different companies with each other in different roles, so we knew each other pretty well and knew what made each other tick. Matt jumped out first, got out of the blocks first and started the business, and as it grew, we wanted it to grow some more, and that's where he was putting a bit of pressure on me to come over and give it a crack, and I'm glad I did. I mean, you can go to university or TAFE or whatever, and you can't learn what you can learn just doing it. So jumping into business, neither of us really had too much experience with it at all, but we had to learn a bit of stuff pretty quick. So it was exciting, and you know what, it still is now. It's still exciting what we're doing now.
Yeah, and I know that first business is a big part of this story and this conversation for everyone tuning in. But just to paint the picture, Maddie, how big did that first business get when you and Scotty, and I know you had another business partner on board, started building that and started growing? How did that company start to accelerate and grow?
Well, for us, it doubled year on year, and that was organic without a it wasn't a lot of push that we put into it. I knew as soon as Scotty came on board, he'd been working very heavily for a lot of years behind the scenes, building relationships, etc. So a lot of people gravitate towards him. But I also knew that we could deliver things pretty quickly and easy if the hands were on there. So to get to the size that we got to, where did we get to? I think we were doing about just shy of 8 million, I think it was. For that, is that right, Scotty? I think we got to about shy of 8 million.
About 50, 60 employees.
Yeah, it was quite a decent operation. Between the three of us, we had with that third business partner, we had our own certain challenges, etc. But we certainly didn't hesitate in trying to see how far we could go. So yes, it got quite big. Yes, we pushed the limits, but unfortunately in doing so, we didn't quite keep our finger on the pulse with everyone that we were dealing with.
And on that note, Scotty, I'll get you to chime in. So you've got this business, you're around the 8 million revenue mark. You've got this team of sort of 15, 16 employees, and you've also got a third business partner involved. At what point in that trajectory, in that journey, did things start to sort of take a turn where you thought, oh, something's not quite right here?
We've been going probably 3 to 4 years, I suppose. We had 50 employees, so it was a bit more than you just mentioned there. So
50?
Quite substantial, yeah. Yeah, we probably got 3 or 4 years into the business, and it got to the point where it was quite, I say healthy, but it was really a maturing business. It was really starting to get through that really tough first period and get to that next stage. We had some holes in the way we were doing things as a business with checks and balances. And I'm sure you're going to ask a few more questions around that, and I'll probably let you go where you want to go on that. But yeah.
Yeah, sure. And Maddie, was there an alarm bell moment where you kind of went, hang on, is something's terribly wrong here? And it just started to sink into that sinking moment where you move flying along and then one day something appears right in front of you and you just go, oh shit. Was there a significant moment where that happened?
There was a couple of them that so I'll probably put in more context. He was very, very clever at creating orange flags, enough to get an understanding and answer, not enough for you to go digging. Mm-hmm. So one thing we have noticed with what we do now is if it's an orange flag and it's not quite there, we start to dig a lot more. But anyway, the defining moment for me is I got to the point where I was done. I was cooked. I was spent. I said, I'm starting my own thing. I'm just going to go completely on my own. You guys can have it. I think I wanted just to pay out a loan and that was it. That's all yours. But that other partner had dragged me back in, and the one that really sunk in for me is he said he was speaking to his accountant at the time, and he said our zero accounting package was a blow-up job and start again. I went, oh, no accountant would ever say that. So that was the first time I actually got a real red flag. And I went, there's a big problem. And not all the money we put in, not all the lack of payment, not all the subbies that were chasing cash. None of that had quite got to the point where it was a red flag in my head at the time. But that's zero thumbprint of a business. That was my defining moment. Okay, a big problem. And then I didn't know who to talk, because Scotty and I had even virtually stopped talking. Like, he was able to get in between both of us. So it wasn't like I could take this data to him and go, hey, this is what's going on. I end up starting to do my own audits behind the scene. I did my own reconciliation and found a decent size hole.
Wow. It's pretty amazing that there's been a wedge drawn between the two of you, and it wasn't, Scotty, or it wasn't you that was the problem. So Scotty, what was actually happening with the other partner? What were they doing behind the scenes that was essentially putting the business in this hole?
So he was very skilled, and we're going to write a movie about it one day, I reckon. Like, if you dig into all the details of what has happened, the layers of it. And it wasn't just Matt and I. As things unwound, we saw the effect he had on everyone around him, and the ripping off and the wrong things he was doing, including to his wife at the time. Because we were growing the business, Matty was looking after the operation side of things. So he was out there driving the projects. I was looking after the sales, so I was doing the estimating and winning jobs and getting them in the door. And his role was the admin, which included the finance. And I guess as a brief overview of what we found was happening was he was setting up bank accounts, making payments, labelling them, for example, John R. Turks, whatever, but it was going to his own accounts. And he'd go, okay, I've paid Turks, there's that money going out there. He'd have the balance sheet in the Excel, the very primitive one, and he'd show us all this. The payments were getting made, things were happening, but they weren't going where they were supposed to go. They're going to other places. And the other place was his pocket. But we started to see a real snowball of one supplier, two suppliers, one stop. No, you're on stop, you're on stop. And we're like, well, we thought you paid that. We thought that was under control. Oh, no, they've made us stuff up. They haven't reconciled it. I'll get that sorted. Just use this other supplier. I mean, it wasn't a huge period of time, but when we're running around running a business, Matt's trying to deliver projects, I'm trying to win more jobs. It's a bit of noise, and you go, oh, he's got it sorted. He's our business partner. It's fine. Hindsight, it wasn't. And we found out after, I don't know, probably from about February, things started to get a lot clunkier and a lot harder, and there was a lot more problems popping up. And then when Matt had that conversation with him about Zero, that was the flag for Matty. And as Matty said, me and him weren't really talking. He was pretty good at dividing and conquering. He had some tendencies there that were very interesting. And then, Matt started digging, and there was on Saturday night, I was talking to my wife, and I said, Matt's been my best mate for 20 years. I'm just going to ring him. I don't know what's going on. And gave Matt a ring, and I said, man, I don't know what's going on with this business. It's not feeling good. It's like, what's going on? But you're my best mate, and like whatever it is, I don't know what's happened, but we need to sort it out. And Matty said, well, the last was about a week. He'd started digging, I reckon. Mate, we got some problems. I've done some digging. I'm chasing the money, and we got some big problems. And so Matt and I think I got on a plane Monday morning. I was in Brisbane. He was in Sydney. On a plane Monday morning and caught up with him. And from there, things went very, very quickly. Working out what was wrong, contacting clients, contacting suppliers, contacting solicitors, and an administrator. So to bring an administrator in. And the challenge we had was that this other business partner was the director, the sole director at that stage of the business. So me and Matt still had to play nice with the other business partner, not let on to him to know that we knew what was going on, but we knew that there was some financial problems, and we had to try to talk him into moving the business into administration pretty quickly as the director, which was another challenge in itself.
Yeah, that's a situation that I think for most business people, entrepreneurs, they're terrified of that scenario, and you could see it coming at you almost like a car going into a pole scenario. Matt, was there a sort of rock bottom moment when you're going through those times where it was really just, or many, or it was just almost felt impossible?
When it really started, I think it might have been just before Scotty jumped on the plane to come down. I was speaking with Scotty's wife, Scotty, my partner, and as it really started to sink in heavily, I could feel myself going to a very dark place, and I had some nasty things go through my head, and I ended up having to go for a walk. I went for a long walk around Lake Parramatta, and I think by the time I got around that lake, I'd calmed down enough to go, all right, stuff it. We just got to move on. What have we got to do next? And that's, like Scotty was saying, we're contacting administrators and everything like that. But I mean, the biggest one for us is even during voluntary administration, we wanted to make sure that the projects were going to be okay, that they were still looked after. So even though we weren't supposed to be working the business, we were still facilitating, making sure lighting packages were turning up, handing over who we were ordering switchboards through, where the status that they were at. So we really tried to do as much as possible to help facilitate the closeout of those projects, if not take off with the guys that we had. So yes, there was a really rock bottom moment, but once we got through that piece, it was basically dust the pliers off and start again. Let's go again.
Amazing. Scotty, did you have any defining moments yourself, a bit like Matty's, where you're walking around Lake Parramatta and sort of that line in the sand sort of moment?
Not like that. I'm not sure. I mean, it was kind of the realisation. The big piece for me was when Matt and I reconnected. Then we were able to come back together and apply our brains to what we needed to happen. And that's the same as me. We just got to keep going. I didn't have that sinking feeling. It was just like, okay, what's next? We've got a big challenge. And that Monday morning, like I said, we got on the phone and we rang all the clients, all the builders, all the suppliers, and we told them exactly what was going on. And then it was just, as Maddie said, back to business and trying. Although we knew that it was going to have an effect on a lot of people, but we tried to minimise it. As Maddie said, facilitate what needed to happen next. I mean, there wasn't even a moment to sit in the corner and cry. Like I said, we kind of had the realization over the weekend, and then it was just straight back into it. How do we minimise the damage to these other businesses?
It was also the team too, Scotty, wasn't it? Like, we had a lot of our team that hadn't got paid wages. So it wasn't just looking at the suppliers, clients. It was also the team that hadn't been paid. And I know at one point, I mean, we were already pretty much tapped out on our credit cards. And one of the guys who had a young family as well, he needed money. And I know, like, we went to the bank and just pulled it out. Went to the bank, pulled it out of the credit card, our last few bucks, and gave it to him. So it was interesting seeing how many layers it did affect, that ripple effect. It's like throwing a stone in the ocean, in a pond, and just watching how far it goes. And it's a big, you don't realize how far it goes.
It's amazing, given that set of circumstances, that you're able to be so proactive. I feel like maybe some other people in that scenario would have like hidden, but you're on the front foot, you're calling everyone and making them aware of the situation. What was the response like when you're making these phone calls, Scotty, and talking to your suppliers, to your team, to builders, to people you got projects with? What was the general consensus when they were hearing what was going on?
Everyone appreciated the phone call, regardless of the bad news that it was. As you said, they all appreciated us getting on the front foot and just getting it out there. I mean, there wasn't too much we could do other than tell them what had happened and what was going to happen. Quite a lot of them lent on us for help and support, particularly the clients. Like, oh, what are we going to do? We've got this switchboard we need approved, whatever. And as Maddie said earlier, we just got it done for them. It was just trying to fill that hole, trying to breach it. But they were appreciative, and I guess, we were able to help a few of them coming out the other side. And I think the good thing was pretty much all the people that had been affected, we were able to rekindle a relationship in one way or another. And whether that was in our new environment, being able to do a job for them or whatever it was, through that we didn't burn too many bridges, if any at all. We were able to make as good a situation out of it as we could.
Yeah, I think that's a good message for anyone that might be going through a challenging set of circumstances. Like, make the phone calls, actually tell people what's going on, because generally speaking, I know there's empathy out there from other humans, rather than just letting it compound into this impossible mess. At least if you're communicating, relaying the information, people can understand where you're coming from. So I think that's significant. Maddie, what was probably the biggest lesson, or what did you learn through this period that has been sort of an asset to move forward into the next chapter?
There's quite a lot. Look, and I'll start off by saying I am grateful we've gone through this experience. We've been able to experience what majority of the world probably wouldn't. On the verge of bankruptcy and losing everything, losing the lot and coming back and starting again. Yeah, sorry, mate. It's really starting to sink in a couple of things that I've done there. What hit me just then is I have a very strong relationship with Scotty, and based on that strong relationship, the one thing that was able to happen was this divide and conquer. And the way he was able to divide and conquer is between you and I. Just keep this between you and I. And that is such a big, powerful lesson that you go, as soon as you hear that, what are you hiding? Why are you keeping this information? And he did that to create brotherly love, but also divide. So that was a very, very big piece. It's a very defining moment. So when someone says, now just keep this between you and I, I'm singing like a bird and going directly to the person. If they're saying something about someone else, no, I'll get them both in the room and I'll ask the question. I'm never, ever going to be left in a situation like that again because someone has expressed that. That was, and then the other one, as well as the checks and balances, and making sure what people are saying, the actions match the words. And that's something that is missing a lot nowadays. There's a lot of words and not enough action, or a lot of action and not enough words.
Powerful, mates. Write those ones down if you've got a pen and paper in front of you. And Scotty, what would your advice be if someone's going, obviously there's interesting economic times. I know in the construction industry, there's interesting variables been going on for a little while. If someone is going through harsh times at the moment, would you have any piece of advice that you'd pass on to them?
Something we try to do all the time is answer the phone, because you'll find that the more you put it away, the more you push it to the bottom and try to ignore stuff, the more it comes to the top, and the more it really starts to breathe down on you. And I think most businesses would have their support networks. They'd have accountants, solicitors, business partner, whoever it is. Lean on the experts that you've got there, and lean on those people that really know what to do in that situation. Because, I mean, we're, like Matt and I are electricians by trade, right? And we don't go in, we didn't sit down, we didn't do an MBA in business or anything like that. We got into business and we learned from doing business. And I reckon 90% of small businesses out there in Australia are doing the same thing right now. So lean on the experts, keep your phone on, talk to people, let them know what's going on. I mean, even as far as the ATO is a big scary beast that people talk about. But if you're in communication with them, they're more than reasonable, and they want businesses to succeed. So get on the phone to them, set up a payment plan. I suppose, just be in contact, be available. That's a big thing that I think we picked up and implemented, and we're still trying to do it today. We're not perfect, but we try.
But there's also a complete rebirth on the other side of what you went through in the first round of working together, where Defence Electrical has come out on the other side of everything we've just spoken about. What's the mindset like to start again and rebuild after going through what you just went through, Matty?
I suppose for me at the time, it was just making sure everything else was okay. Like, as we said before, is making sure projects were going all right. So we end up taking on some of the projects that were left in a bad situation. We took on the closeout of them under the new business to help close them out. But it was basically labour hire. So we had a few people that just needed to get their jobs done, and we just supplied labour to them and did what we could to close them out. So the mindset was still about just completion, like just get it done. All while that was going on, we're trying to build new logos. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? The Defence Electrical was a perfect name at the time, because the defence space for us we've known it for quite some time, quite a lot of years. So the mindset then is, okay, let's look at the closing these out. What's next? And then there was an opportunity for another decent sized project in the defence space, and we were lucky enough to pick it up, and that really set us off again. And that more had to do with our reputation and previous experience on that type of project, which gave us the opportunity to step into it. So the mindset then was just to, all right, let's get going and see what we can do when someone isn't siphoning money.
Yeah, it would have been a refreshing change when the accounts are all adding up and people are getting paid. And Scotty, naturally, you're starting up again under a new business, new trading name, and all those things. Was there hesitation? Did you have to rebuild trust? Was there reluctance? What was the vibe like when you're coming out as Defence Electrical with all the collateral damage that had happened previously, when you're talking to vendors and builders, project managers, contract administrators? How was that experience on the other side of it all?
I suppose firstly, internally between me and Matt, I don't remember there being a conscious decision going, let's start again, let's do this. We just got into it. So it wasn't a what can we do here, like how do we do it? We just got into it. And then we just kept the communication up with the clients that we knew and the people that we knew and the contacts that we had. And we just kept fostering them, and some were obviously a bit more hurt and a bit more prickly than others. We didn't let what was happening for them affect what we were doing and who we wanted to be. So we kept fronting up, we kept trying to deliver projects, showing people. And there was some clients that got hurt for us in the previous business that it took 18 months, 2 years to win them back over. But we did. We kept building on those personal relationships we had with project managers, with operation managers, things like that. And Defence Electrical's grown and thrived through those relationships that we've kept. What happens those project managers might be with their business for 2 or 3 years, and then they move on to another business, and they all love having their team. So we've grown to working for other clients through our relationships that we sparked in our previous business, maintained them at the start of Defence Electrical, and it was able to grow. So that's brought more clients on for us and widened down net a little bit just by trying to do the right thing. Like I said, we're not perfect, but our intention is always to do the right thing and deliver as best we can.
2019, you're in one place. Now 2023. Maddie, I know personally what Defence Electrical looks like. Do you want to paint a picture for the listeners? What does Defence Electrical look like today, 4 years down the track after everything you went through?
It expanded to, what did we get to, about 60 or 70 people at one point, Scotty? And that was just recently. So we did have a snowball effect that happened with projects during that COVID period as well. Some were delayed and others started pretty much at the same time. So we ended up with this great big bomb explosion. But we're coming over the back end of that now. But what we have been able to do is identify where we want to be. So we've now drawn a demarcation point on the growth we want to be at, and then sit and maintain, and plus in the areas that we want to work in. So as we described earlier, the defence space is big for us. We enjoy the space. We're quite good in that space. There isn't a lot of competition. We do see it's fairly protected money, and that's where we want to keep most of our focus, but we still have a piece in the construction industry, but we're not going to go any bigger than we've been.
So from voluntary or into administration to back up to a team of 60 in the space of 4 years, pretty incredible rebuild if you ask me. But on that note, running a company of that size where you got 60 people working for you, that's a lot of moving parts. How do you run a company with that many team underneath you, Scotty? There's obviously a lot going on at any point in time. How do you get your head around that, and how do you keep it moving and stay on top of it all?
Yeah, good question. We're always learning. The way we've looked at it recently, because we've got to this saturation point where we grew really quickly and we got affected, as Matty said, with projects getting delayed, and we had a really big team. We've kind of not stepped away from the business. We've moved away to look back at it, to see what we're doing. And we're really trying to model our business that if we were going to come in and take over the business, what would we want it to look like? And that's, really trying to process the business, trying to get the right people. People is a huge thing, and getting the right team in. We've probably been guilty of hiring a little bit too fast in the past. And because we need someone, you need someone in that chair, we've pulled the trigger on a team that probably haven't been the right fit. We found that out, and that's something we're a lot more conscious of. So at the moment, a really, really good performing upper management team. We've got admin and finances over on another side. Then we've got our Queensland and New South Wales operations with account managers, operational support. We've got an engineering team that we've set up. We've got some of our accounts are based in the Philippines, which is we've got a great little team there that keeps the admin thing rolling over. But yeah, it's not easy, and there's not a perfect magic wand that you can wave in front of it to get a really great functioning team. There's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of mistakes we've made. We've spent a lot of money in places we shouldn't have spent money at the time. We make a decision, right, we're going to go in that, and cost us X amount of money. We get 6 months down the track, and okay, that doesn't work for our business. Let's have another look at it. We're really trying to be better at planning. That's doing a lot of work with our operations team around programming and forecasting things that are going to come up. That's making a huge difference in our team, particularly around cash flow, which is a huge thing for any business. Knowing what's coming up in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, how much labour we're going to need. So Maddie and the ops team are putting in a huge effort there that's making it easier on the finance side to get through it. So I guess in short, get the right team, spend some time planning and forecasting what you want to do. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. So me and Matty always say, we'll get to a point and we'll go, this is awesome. Why didn't we do this 2 years ago? And you go, well, you can't get to step 10 without going through step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's impossible just to get to the end without walking the path and working things out.
Just get out there, make some mistakes. And Matty, with that in mind, and you've obviously had a bit of a reset in terms of how you're looking at the business more recently. So what's the mission for Defence Electrical moving forward?
The mission for us currently is just to get everything operating systematically. So we want everything to be operating from point A to point C. When it comes into our conveyor belt, it will come back out the other side, and it's just as good as when it left, and continual improvement. And that's just something as simple as even how something's labelled. Like label 1 needs to look the same as label 2, etc. So at the moment, we're trying to make it as uniform as possible, easy as possible. So if someone else was to come and sit back in that chair, they know exactly what they're doing. It's a much larger undertaking than we had anticipated, but it's certainly I see the benefits.
Amazing, mate. And we'll pivot here because obviously there's a compelling future, and just want to acknowledge you both for rebuilding out of the despair essentially, and building up an amazing company that is earned its stripes and doing incredible things in both Queensland and also New South Wales in terms of where your work and projects are. But more recently, I'm jumping on my LinkedIn feed and I'm starting to see content posts coming out from you both, and was one of the reasons that piqued my interest in having a chat on the podcast here today. So you're both starting to dip your toe into putting out some content and sharing some ideas almost in the thought leadership space in the online world. So I'll start with you, Scotty. Tell me about how that little pivot and transitioning into starting to share some tools, technologies and things from your personal brand has been for you in the social media world.
No one just wakes up and knows anything, right? You don't just wake up and know how to anything at all. So we've gone through a lot of this stuff. We're finding a lot of things, and we think we can give value to everyone that we're connected with, that we can show them a few things, whether it's the new AI tools, and that's a space that I'm blown away by, and I love it to bits. I know Matty does as well, just where AI is going. Back to tips to work on construction sites, things for cash flow. So it's really just trying to connect with the people we're connected with and give them some value and make it a little bit easier, because I think there's no reason that we can't all support and help each other. We can't all win. There's enough out there for everyone to eat. So why don't we try to help each other, make each other better? That's kind of where my head's come from to push that end of it.
Yeah, I love that ethos coming from a place of service, which ultimately is the frame that we've promoted here when it comes to getting out there. And on that note, Matty, how does it feel? You start putting content out, you start posting as yourself. I think it's a big step for a lot of people when you make that transition, you start sharing. Was there any hesitation? How did you feel when you started to do that, given everything else that had gone on previously?
It felt just like stepping out from working for a company and starting a business again. So there's a lot of people who want to give you the tap on the head and everyone knows best from their comfy lounges. So there was that feeling of nervousness again. However, it was like everything else. We just do it. Just do it. Front up, have a go and see what happens. And I mean, we've gone through a lot, Scott and I, and we know we've got a lot that we can offer and support people and who have got the same sort of headaches that we've gone through. We can offer some guidance there where we need to. So to me, it'd be more selfish for me staying hidden in the shadows rather than saying, here I am. Anyone needs some support, put your hand up or give us a call.
Amazing, mate, and a great way to frame it up for the listeners that are still hesitant and reluctant to make that transition or start putting those posts out there. On the AI topic, Scotty, I know you've shared some incredible resources. Anytime I flick you something, you're like, I already know about that one, mate. So I need to come to you to get it more embedded in this space. But what are some of the top AI tools that you've come across that would be worth checking out for some of the listeners here today?
I suppose the ones that have helped me, I mean, everyone knows ChatGPT. That's a great base to start with. Something I found really valuable with ChatGPT is it allows you to set up channels down the side. So I've spent a bit of time. I've created a channel called the Defence Electrical Personal Assistant. I've asked the AI to ask me as many questions as it needs to be able to get a good idea of what our business is like. So I've spent a lot of time building it, and now I've got a little personal assistant there that I might ask it to write me a debt recovery letter, and it knows all the information about our business, and it's able to put it together. I can quickly, I've put an org chart in there so I can quickly pull out job descriptions. Now, nothing's ever perfect with this AI stuff, so you've got to review it and you've got to make sure it makes sense, but it's a really good base to start with. The other one's the video options, and the one we were talking about that cuts it apart and just crazy breaks it down into little 1 minute videos of what we're doing. I can't remember the name of it right now. There's one that you can dump some words into, so you write a bit of a story about your business or whatever it is, and it'll AI generate videos and slides that go with it. I think that's called pictures.ai. That's one that's been fantastic and just so clever. Like, you can make we did one about switchboards. So we wrote some content about maintenance on switchboards, and we chucked it in there, and like, it was one of my first ones I've done, and probably within under an hour, it created this video that sent it over to Matt, and I said, Matt, like 10 years ago, what would this cost to get it made? And we're like, yeah, it's probably $3,000 to $5,000, and it would take
At
it
least
4 weeks to get made. And I think the subscription was $60 for the month, and we got it made in an hour. So if you're not using AI, you should be. There's heaps of directories. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, and on that note, Matty, how do you see the future of content, or even in your space with what you've come across and learned in the last few months? Do you have any predictions for trends or anything that you see happening that might shake up the industry and sector that you're in?
AI, I think, is the biggest one, being on the forefront of that. So I think you hear a lot of talks about positions being taken away or jobs being taken away. But we've actually been looking at it a bit differently, seeing there's going to be jobs increasing. So you're going to need experts who know how to pull all those AIs together, right? So I think that's going to be a huge one. I do foresee the construction industry having a change at some point. The way I see it, and again, this is just my thoughts, is I do see it bouncing back in a big way. And I think the ones that are there for a place of service will not only be around, they'll actually start to thrive. And I'm talking about construction businesses that are using their hands. I do foresee that being a very limited space that people can actually get things done. Now, whether it comes true or not is another question. But I do foresee a bit of a musical chairs happening, and whoever's the last person on the seat is going to really, really win.
Scotty, what's your vision? Obviously, at a certain point, with your business, Defence Electrical, transitioning, starting to share a lot of really valuable tools and insights as yourself on social media. Is there a vision there? Is there a plan there? Or is it just take it as you come? How do you foresee that side of the equation for yourself?
I want to get it out there, and I want to be able to help people, and probably not even on a business level, just on a support level, that we can offer our experiences and our ideas, and we're always coming up with cooked ideas that let's do this, and so, well, how do we do it? But that's probably something that I think where Matt and I are really good at is identifying problems or issues and being come up with solutions, because we both enjoy that problem solving side of things. So I don't know where it will take us, but if we can along the way through what we're doing help other people, and it helps us as well, right? Like, it definitely grows us as well, being able to position ourselves a bit more as, I guess, a leader in our industry. The more we push towards that, the more we grow as well. So it definitely helps our self-growth and where we're trying to go as well by helping others.
Matty, I'll let you finish on the final note. If people have been tuning into this episode and they want to get in touch for any reason, it could be what they're going through, it could be for business reasons with Defence Electrical, or to tap into some of the cool tools and technology you're sharing, what's the best way to get in touch with the both of you and say g'day?
We're pretty available on all platforms, really. We've got LinkedIn, Facebook, what else? Twitter. Been enjoying Twitter a lot more of late. Any of those areas, just reach out. Send us a message if you want to have a chat about anything. Just even floating ideas. We enjoy that idea space. We enjoy that problem-solving space, and we're not afraid of just jumping and having a go. So it's not just the idea. It's we'll come up with it and jump in and have a crack. So if you're interested in those sorts of discussions, reach out to us on any of those platforms.
So it's Matthew Davies and Scott Cliffe, just so you're not looking for Scotty and Maddie. Give you some,
one T in Matthew. One T in Matthew. Most people miss that. Drop that T.
We'll put the links to them both in the show notes if you want to make contact and reach out. But gentlemen, you've been incredibly generous in sharing your story, and I know it's one that there's vulnerability and there's also humility there. And I think from my perspective, I look up to you both, having gone through what you went through initially, and then to build Defence Electrical up to a team where you got 60 people underneath you, having been dragged through it all. To me, that's just one of the most inspiring stories. And I know certainly when I have moments in business where it feels a little bit shit and hard, I just remember what you two have worked your way through and come out on the other side, and it certainly lifts me up. So thank you for sharing and being so open and honest with your journey and how you've arrived here today.
We really appreciate the conversation.
While we're loving each other, mate, you've done some great work as well. What you've been putting up on LinkedIn and your podcast and that has been sensational, mate.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's been an honour. We'll end the episode on that note, and we'll be back again with another episode of the Content Marketing Podcast very soon.